My wife's yoga instructor was actually a millionaire investor. He tried to buy my company while dating my wife. I, 32M, never thought I'd be writing one of these posts, but here I am. The past month has turned my life upside down, and I need to get this off my chest. It's a long story, but I'll try to keep it as coherent as possible. My wife and I have been married for 8 years. We met in college, built our lives together, and I genuinely thought we were happy. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but nothing major. I started my own tech company 3 years ago, and while it was tough at first, we're finally seeing real success. My wife was supportive throughout the startup phase, working extra hours at her marketing job to help keep us afloat. I always thought we were a team. Everything changed 6 months ago when she started taking yoga classes. At first, I was completely supportive. She'd been stressed at work, and exercise is always good, right? She'd come home twice a week looking refreshed, talking about her amazing instructor who was revolutionizing her practice. She'd never been into yoga before, but suddenly it was all she could talk about. How her instructor's unique approach was changing her perspective on life. How his spiritual guidance was helping her find herself. The changes were subtle at first. New workout clothes, which made sense for a new hobby. Then came the expensive athletic wear. A different perfume. More time on her phone, always quickly turning it face down when I walked by. She started going to bed early to prepare for morning practice, but would be on her phone under the covers for hours. You know where this is going, right? But I trusted her. We'd built a life together, and I couldn't imagine her throwing it all away. The classes increased gradually, 3 times a week, then 4. Then came the weekend workshops and spiritual retreats. She'd be gone all Saturday, coming home late with this glow about her, talking about the amazing breakthroughs she'd had. I started to feel uneasy, but every time I expressed concern about how much time she was spending at yoga, she'd accuse me of being unsupportive of her spiritual journey. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. She started dressing differently, not just for yoga but all the time. More makeup, more effort with her hair. She lost weight, not drastically, but enough to notice. She bought a whole new wardrobe, saying her energy had changed and she needed clothes that matched her new vibration. I actually encouraged it, thinking she was just going through a self-improvement phase. Then came the distance, physical and emotional. She stopped asking about my day. Our conversations became surface level. Sex became rare, then non-existent. She always had an excuse, too tired from yoga, stressed about work, headache. When I tried to talk about it, she'd say I was too focused on the physical and needed to elevate my consciousness. I felt like I was living with a stranger who spoke in spiritual cliches. Last Tuesday changed everything. I was having lunch with a potential client at this new bistro downtown, the kind of place with $25 salads and wine lists longer than my company's business plan. The client was about to sign a major deal, so I was focused on making a good impression. That's when I saw them. My wife and her instructor were sitting in a corner booth, but they weren't discussing yoga poses. He had his hand on hers, and they were both laughing at something on her phone. The way they were looking at each other. You know that look? The one that used to be meant for me. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen, her hair done up exactly the way she used to do it for our date nights, something she'd stopped doing months ago, claiming she was moving away from superficial concerns. I felt sick to my stomach, but forced myself to stay seated and finish my lunch meeting. The client probably thought I was having a stroke, given how distracted I was. I kept stealing glances at their table, watching as this guy, tall, probably mid-40s, expensive watch glinting under the restaurant lights, leaned in close to whisper something that made my wife blush. They never noticed me. They were too wrapped up in their own world. Here's where it gets interesting. The very next day, my business partner tells me we have a meeting with a potential investor, a big-shot venture capitalist who's interested in our AI development platform. This could be huge, my partner said. Don't screw it up. The moment the investor walked into our conference room, we both froze. The recognition was instant. It was him, the yoga instructor, except he wasn't just some spiritual guru teaching downward dog. He was a wealthy venture capitalist who taught yoga for fun on the side. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment, that same expensive watch catching the fluorescent office lights. The meeting was the most uncomfortable hour of my life. We both pretended not to know each other, discussing profit margins and market projections while my mind raced through every moment of the past 6 months. He kept his cool, but I noticed him checking his phone repeatedly. I'm sure he was texting my wife, probably laughing about the situation. That evening, I did something I'd never done before. I waited until my wife was in the shower, then checked her phone. I knew her passcode. It was still our anniversary date, which felt like a sick joke now. The messages confirmed everything. They'd been seeing each other for months. The yoga studio was their cover, but they'd been meeting all over town. Hotels, restaurants, his beach house. There were pictures, intimate messages, plans for their future. The worst part was reading about how they laughed about me. How he called me the oblivious husband, and she responded with laughing emojis. How they joked about his upcoming meeting with me, knowing I had no idea who he really was. They had pet names for each other. Inside jokes. A whole secret language built on the foundation of my shattered trust. I sat on her bed, surrounded by throw pillows she'd bought during her home energy optimization phase, and waited for her to finish her shower. When she came out, wrapped in her expensive bamboo fiber towel, I simply held up her phone. She froze. Then came the stages: denial, anger about invasion of privacy, accusations that I'd driven her to this with my low-vibration energy and materialistic focus. Finally, tears and confession. The worst part? She said she'd been trying to figure out how to tell me because he was offering her a fresh start, a life of luxury she claimed I could never provide. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. Then I told her about the investor meeting. The color drained from her face. Turns out, her boyfriend hadn't mentioned that part to her. He'd been planning to invest in my company while sleeping with my wife. The sheer audacity of it all was almost impressive. I called my business partner that night and explained everything. He was furious. We'd been counting on that investment to expand our AI platform, but he agreed it was better to know now than to be in business with someone like that. Besides, he said, there are other investors. There's only one marriage. My wife moved out yesterday, staying with her sister while we figure things out. There's nothing to figure out. I've already contacted a divorce lawyer. The irony? If she ends up with him, she'll get her luxury life using the money from our divorce settlement, since my company is now taking off. We just signed 2 major clients, the one from the bistro, and another who approached us after word got out that we turned down venture capital funding on ethical grounds. I've spent the last day alternating between rage and numbness. I keep thinking about all the little moments that should have tipped me off. The yoga retreats that always seemed to fall on our date nights. The new friends she never introduced me to. The way she'd changed her social media passwords because she needed digital boundaries. The funny thing is, I actually tried yoga myself a few weeks ago, thinking it might help us reconnect. Went to a different studio, of course. The instructor there said I had natural alignment. I wonder if my wife's boyfriend says that to all his marks, or if he saved that line just for her. I'm not looking for advice. I know what I need to do. I just needed to share this somewhere. The whole situation feels surreal, like I'm living in some bad drama. 8 years of marriage unraveled because of yoga classes. At least I found out before we had kids. Edit. Thank you for all the support. To answer some common questions, yes, I've documented everything, and my lawyer has copies of the text messages. No, I won't name the venture capital firm or the investor. And yes, I've already canceled our joint credit cards and frozen our shared accounts. Edit 2. For those asking why I didn't make a scene at the bistro, I had a client with me who was about to sign a major deal. That contract is worth more than any revenge in the moment would have been. Sometimes being professional pays off more than being dramatic. Edit 3. Stop messaging me about getting revenge or exposing him in the VC community. I'm focusing on the divorce and my company. The best revenge is success, and right now, that's all I care about. Final edit. My soon-to-be ex just texted asking to meet and explain everything. Apparently, her sister finally talked some sense into her about what she's throwing away. Too little, too late. I'm meeting with my lawyer tomorrow to start the divorce proceedings. Thanks for all the support, Reddit. This has been therapeutic.